What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC 231 happening this Saturday. And it's actually a really stacked card. A lot of amazing fights. A lot of high stakes on this card. But I'm going to start with Claudia versus Nina Ansaroff. Now, for Nina Ansaroff, I actually believe this is one of her hardest matchups in the entire division stylistically and through experience and all that sort of stuff. Claudia is probably the best BJJ artist in the entire division, or at least one of them, with fighters like Mackenzie Dern in there. But she's definitely a formidable grappler with some power in her hands, very fast hands, and she is a powerhouse in the strawweight division. She's been working her boxing a lot more. She is utilizing the jab a lot more, straight right hands, fast hands, but she fades in the fight. If there's anything that Nina Ansaroff can capitalize on, the fading aspect of Claudia Gadelha. She starts strong, but then she just gets weaker through the fight. But Nina Ansaroff is more of a taekwondo fighter. She fights at a range. She fights long distance. Now, she doesn't move as much, but her kicks are a lot more dynamic. They're a lot more threatening, and she can mix it up as well. She can mix up the hands, land high kicks afterward. But the problem here is the kicks can get caught by the grappling style of Claudia. And if Claudia goes that route and just becomes a grappler and a wrestler in this fight, I believe she will shut down Nina Ansaroff's game, as well as trumping Nina Ansaroff's ground game completely. So I'm going to go with Claudia Gadelha. I'm going to go by a second or third round submission. Then we go to Jimmy Manuwa versus Thiago Santos. Man, is this fight not going to last long. Two straight knockout artists in the light heavyweight division. Everything they throw is 100% committed to knock the opponent out. Jimmy Manuwa uses hands a lot more than kicks. Thiago Santos mixes it up a lot more. It's going to be hard to say who's the faster fighter, but the one that can cover distance and has faster footwork is definitely Santos. Any shot from these two can end the night. So I believe the first one to really land that hard strike, that one clean shot, is going to be the victor, and that's what makes this fight very hard to predict. I mean, Jimmy Manuwa is more of a Muay Thai fighter in a sense, but he uses his boxing a lot more. He has probably the best left hook in the game. He has that death blow kind of punch where if it just lands, the fight is pretty much over every single time. And Thiago Santos, he has this more karate style of attacks where it's a very long stance, very long distance he covers, and the combinations are very short, and they're usually straighter shots. Sometimes he'll throw overhands, and he'll throw high kicks, spinning kicks, all that sort of stuff. There are a couple X factors about this fight. Jimmy Manuwa is not young. He is not a young guy. He's been cracked many times in his career. He's been knocked out recently as well. He's on a 2-loss streak right now, and he even got rocked in his last fight against a guy who isn't known for his power, and Jan Blachowicz. And Thiago Santos is newer in this division. He's a younger guy, hungry lion in this one. And I think leg kicks can get to Manuwa, as well as covering the distance in those long strides and getting away from Manuwa. So I'm going to go with Thiago Santos. This is a hard one to call, but I think he's going to knock out Jimmy Manuwa. I think the leg kicks will play a factor and eventually opens up the headshots. So I'm going to go with Thiago Santos. I'm going to go by a second round knockout. Then we go to Alex Oliveira versus Gunnar Nelson, the return of Gunny Nelson. This is not an easy comeback fight. Alex Oliveira has that karate style attack, kind of similar to Thiago Santos, but he's a lot quicker and it's a lot more methodical of a karate striker. And coincidentally, he is fighting someone who is very well trained in karate, in Gunnar Nelson. And with Gunnar Nelson's experience in karate and the distance management he has, it might play to Alex Oliveira's detriment. Now, Oliveira's going to have that reach advantage. He does have the power advantage, I believe. He does have the more dynamic kicks. He'll throw spinning kicks. He has nasty body kicks, especially if he switches it up on Nelson. It depends which stance these two take. But both being in their traditional orthodox stance, the lunging right hand of Alex Oliveira is not going to play too much of an advantage as it usually does when he fights southpaw fighters. Because when he fights southpaw fighters, he gets off the center line, and the reach and speed and the distance he travels, it's such a huge advantage over most people he faces. But the thing about Gunnar Nelson is he has excellent counter shots, an excellent counter right hand, and on the ground, he is so much more formidable than Oliveira. It's a tough fight to call. I believe it's a close fight, and Nelson's comeback after the knockout of Santiago Ponzinibbio, that's an X factor in this one. I don't know how he's going to come back. I don't know how he's going to be after a knockout like that because it was pretty bad. But skills and the stylistic matchup, I believe Nelson is better than Oliveira in pretty much every aspect. So I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson, and I'm actually going to go by a third round submission. The first round I see being pretty close. I see them figuring out each other, just timing each other until the second round comes, and then they start loosening up a little bit. And I believe Nelson's going to catch Oliveira with a counter right, because Oliveira does extend when he commits, and submit him on the ground when he drops him. Then we go to the co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Jedrzejczyk, a fight a lot of people are looking forward to, the number 1 ranked flyweight versus the number 1 ranked strawweight, and this is going to be for the flyweight title. Now, the thing we have to point out is these two fought 3 times in Muay Thai. Their strengths, even in MMA. And I know a lot of people are saying that it's a different fight, it's MMA, it's a whole different game. It is. But what is different about it? That's what people have to analyze. Gloves are different. That's a big factor. They have fast hands, and Valentina throws hooks around the guard, and you want to throw straight shots. She throws hooks around the guard as well, but her straight shots may be more of an advantage for MMA than when they fought in Muay Thai. And another thing is, the Muay Thai plum, clinching up, it could be a lot easier in MMA, and Valentina Shevchenko in the Muay Thai fights had a huge advantage in the clinch. Huge advantage. And even in MMA, she has taken down fighters like Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, way bigger fighters, and in Amanda Nunes, a way better grappler than Joanna is. And she was able to do that from the clinch because of her judo background, as well as her Muay Thai background. She has insane balance in the clinch. And Joanna really doesn't stay in the clinch a whole lot. She likes distance, so if it gets in close, I have to favor Valentina Shevchenko because of that clinch exchange, and she showed it before, it was an advantage for her. And she was able to throw down Joanna almost at will. Now, the distance fighting is going to be tricky. The distance that they fight in is a little bit different, and the footwork of Joanna has greatly changed. Shevchenko's not as much. She still somewhat has that Muay Thai stance and footwork. Joanna is a lot more elusive nowadays. She's always bouncing, she's always moving in and out in all sort of directions. But when she attacks linearly. She attacks forward or back. She doesn't really cut off angles when she attacks. But when she's evading or just moving in general, all angles. And Shevchenko in the distance, she doesn't do a whole lot other than she looks for the counter right hook. She is a southpaw fighter. They're going to be in opposite stances, although Joanna could fight in southpaw as well. So it depends what Joanna takes here. If she takes a southpaw stance, the right hook of Shevchenko can definitely work. But if Joanna sticks with the orthodox position, Valentina's going to have to slip the right straight and land a counter right hook on the outside. That is Valentina's best punch by far. Now, she has very fast hands in the flyweight division. Like you saw in her fight against Cachoeira, her hands are lightning. And she's going to need that for someone as fast as Joanna. The kicking game, I think, will be neutralized. I think they're both just so evenly matched with the outside kicks, leg kicks especially. Shevchenko really likes to snap the kicks. She doesn't generate a lot of power with the leg kicks, but Joanna does a little bit more. Shevchenko likes to just tag them and measure distance and just check the opponent every single time, but they will accumulate damage. And Shevchenko does have spinning techniques. She has spinning back fists, spinning head kicks, which can also work on someone like Joanna, but Joanna's footwork is a lot more elusive than Shevchenko's. Shevchenko's a lot more plodding, but it still plays to her advantage because of how quick she is to react. She pulls on a lot of punches, and she always looks for that counter right hook. If they are still in distance, she follows up with a left straight. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to have to go with Shevchenko. She has trained Rose Namajunas to beat Joanna. She did it twice, and I believe she knows Joanna's tendencies, even still today. Rose can also give her some hints, and in the infighting, on the ground, and in the clinch, I think Shevchenko dominates the fight. And at a distance, I believe they're going to neutralize each other a lot. I think in the distance, nothing is really going to land clean. The fight is really going to get going once it gets inside. So I'm going to go with Shevchenko. I'm going to go by a decision. I see her winning 4 rounds out of the 5. Then we go to the main event, and by far the biggest fight on the entire card that most people are looking forward to. Now, here's the thing. Don't get settled yet. This fight, I don't want to jinx it, but there's still things that can derail this fight and throw in Renato Moicano or something. Because the weigh-ins haven't happened. Max Holloway, he's pulled out, 3 times already in a row, and it usually happens around his weight cut. And that makes this fight so hard to predict. Max Holloway is more of a kickboxer with great takedown defense and great submission ability. He's a volume puncher rather than a powerful puncher. He sets up combinations very well. His game relies on momentum. If you let him go, he doesn't really stop, and he just gets harder and harder to deal with as the rounds go on, and if you can't keep up with his pace. But if you're able to disrupt his pace and hit him before he's able to hit you or even counter him, his whole momentum stops and he has to reset it again. So that's why someone like Conor McGregor was able to do what he did to him. I know that was a long time ago, but even Jose Aldo recently in their first fight was able to do a very similar thing. It was hard for Holloway to get going for the first 2 rounds because of that. He was trying, but Aldo was getting the best of him in the exchanges, and it was a lot easier to handle Holloway. That is something Brian Ortega can absolutely do. Brian Ortega is a BJJ artist, probably the best pound-for-pound BJJ artist in the UFC, one of them at least, because of how dangerous he is in every position. But he has legitimate knockout power that Holloway doesn't really have to that extent. And Ortega doesn't go away. He stays in your face. He will go blow for blow with you. He likes to trade shots. He likes to stay in the pocket, exchange in there. He likes to roll with punches, all this sort of stuff. But rolling with Max Holloway's punch is going to be very hard, especially with the volume of it. How many are coming at every direction? If you're just going to be defensive like that, Ortega's going to have to counter. He has to take an approach very similar to how he did later in the fight against Frankie Edgar as well as Cub Swanson, where he just keeps coming forward and just trying to land his shots, trying to force his openings. Not look for them, but force his openings through something like an attack or getting Holloway to miss and then counterattack, something in that area, maybe fake a takedown, all that sort of stuff. That's what he's going to have to do against Holloway. He has to force his attacks. He has to be the one to dictate the pace of the fight. And he has to do it early because Holloway doesn't gas out. Ortega has never fought in a 5-round fight, or at least he's never went 5 rounds. He's actually never went past the 3rd round, so we don't know how his cardio is going to be. But Holloway's looks pretty solid. And if it gets to the ground, Ortega, I believe, handles anybody in the division, handles most people in the lightweight division as well. The real battle is going to be on the feet. I don't think Ortega has the takedowns to take down Holloway. I believe the only way this fight gets to the ground is if Ortega drops Holloway, if Holloway drops Ortega, or if Holloway gets in the clinch or close boxing range and dips his head a little bit too much and Ortega snatches it. But Holloway doesn't really do that too much. He stays tall for the most part, stays at range for the most part, but then goes to my prediction. If Holloway is healthy, he makes weight right, he's not compromised in the fight, I believe he wins this fight. Because I believe he is the better striker, he has the cleaner technique. Ortega has been seen to get hit plenty of times against guys like Swanson, and especially against Renato Moicano, who has a very similar build to Max Holloway, as well as similar attacks, but not nearly as much in variety. Holloway's pretty much a better version of Renato Moicano on the feet, and Ortega was getting tagged almost at will by Moicano. He was trying to be very defensive because of the amount of strikes that was coming at him. And I believe if Ortega just stays a little bit too defensive, Holloway will just take over this fight. I'm going to go with that premise. I'm going to go with if Ortega is healthy, if he's not compromised, I'm going to take him in the fight. And I think he's going to win a decision. If anyone's going to get finished in this fight, Holloway could finish Ortega later, but I think if the fight ends in a finish, Ortega catches Holloway. Now, if Holloway is compromised, I 100% go with Ortega, but I'm going to stick with Holloway in this one. Now, let's look at the betting odds really quick to see if there's anything interesting. Diego Lima is a plus 300. He's almost a 3-1 underdog against Chad Laprise. That fight is definitely not that one-sided. Laprise definitely has the advantage in the fight, but it's a striking battle. Laprise does have pretty good takedowns sometimes. But Lima, longer, bigger, more power, better chin. Laprise doesn't have the best chin, so that's an interesting one. Devin Clark is a 4-1 underdog. I don't know his opponent, Alexander Rakic. That seems pretty interesting. Devin Clark is more of a veteran. Definitely I should be doing more research on that one. Interesting. I thought Jessica Ai would be the favorite over Chookagian. I definitely favor Chookagian to win that fight. Thiago Santos and Jimmy Manuwa is almost a pick'em fight. I mean, anything can land. When they exchange, someone's going to fall. And will Santos get a little bit too wild? Will he extend too much? And will Manuwa catch him in close? Because Manuwa does have cleaner punching technique, but he leaves himself exposed defensively sometimes. Man, they're both almost glass cannons in a sense. More so Manuwa in that one, but his cannon is more powerful. Kyle Bochniak versus Dawodu. That should be a very fun fight. I think that might be the fight of the night. The biggest one to look at is the first fight, Diego Lima versus Chad Laprise. That one is kind of interesting. Devin Clark's fight is a little bit interesting, but I don't know his opponent. And everything else I pretty much agree with. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. My next video is going to be the podcast. It's going to come up probably tomorrow or even Friday, so be on the lookout for that. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.